Hi, my name is Adele, and I'm a trauma therapist with Naked Divorce and Naked.Recovery. And I wanted to share, I've just taken some notes after a client session, and I wanted to share some of the learnings from the session because I think it is pertinent, particularly if you're one of those people that avoids conflict and you find that actually as one of your big learnings coming out of relationships that you're too tolerant. And this particular client, his patterning is very much, he takes on the responsibility of things too much on himself. So his kind of belief system is, I was a bad husband. I didn't, do a good job with this relationship. So the first thing we did was we kind of, when you're doing cognitive restructuring, you look at the entire a circle of responsibility across, all factors that would have played a role. And finding out first is, it's not just as simple as you're 50% responsible, she's 50% responsible for what happened in the relationship. It could be that 20% of the relationship expectations and who's responsible is the expectations of Hollywood. All that stuff we get sold about, dreams come true and everything's fantastic and, we're just going to get married and everything's going to be great. Next expectation could be religion. The fact that once we get married, everything's going to be fantastic and we don't have to do much work. Like that piece of paper is going to protect us. Another factor could be money. Another factor could be children and how they've influenced or changed your relationship. It could be stressors associated with children. And then there are the factors of what you're responsible for and then what your ex is responsible for. So taking on too much responsibility isn't necessarily the most accurate way to assess, when you're looking back at the learnings of a relationship. But one of the big learnings, in looking at what you can be responsible for coming out of a relationship is, first things first, seeing if you're a very tolerant person and, you don't stand up or speak up for yourself and you stepped over a lot in the relationship. What's interesting, and I find this pattern not just with this particular client, but with a lot of clients, is people that don't like conflict. There's some kind of story or something from the past where people that speak up and cause conflict are dramatic, or they're making a fuss, or they're being selfish by speaking up for the needs or advocating for their needs getting met. And all these people that speak up for themselves like that, there's something actually wrong with them. So it feels almost wrong or selfish or misplaced to be advocating or speaking up for one's needs. So what tends to happen in that situation is the person becomes too tolerant and steps over lots of things in the relationship. If you want to reverse out of becoming, being somebody that's too tolerant, first things first, you've got to work out, what is it that I need? What are my needs in a relationship? What do I care about in a relationship? What makes me happy? And tuning in and feeling those needs. Next is finding a way to speak up for those needs and actually I'm actually not happy with that. Or when you do that, I actually feel like this. What I really need is for this to happen or this to take place. Can we discuss? Can we talk about it? And then the most important part, because this is the part that people that avoid conflict don't like, you need to be responsible for and handle the fallout of that. So when you speak up for your needs and advocate, there's going to be fallout. There's going to be some kind of repercussion from that. And as long as you, in the adulting world, take accountability for that fallout or the consequences of speaking up for your needs, you manage it and you're able to go, well, whatever will happen, and I can take ownership of that. That is you managing conflict. That is you actually able to not only speak up for yourself, but actually handle whatever comes from that. And that is basically the process of handling conflict, rather than thinking it's something else, like it's being selfish or being dramatic. People that maybe in your past where you've experienced the conflict, you raise conflict, it doesn't get resolved, or you raise conflict and it leads to a lot of drama or chaos. Somewhere in that system, people are not being, not taking responsibility or ownership for the fallout. They're not owning the consequences, or they're not handling the consequences appropriately. So those are really kind of important lessons to learn if you are somebody that doesn't like conflict. And I think being too tolerant in general is a pattern that I see with a lot of people coming out of relationships. Is their big learning is, I'm just too tolerant and I just step over things. And this will not be the only area in life that you're doing that. Examining, if I do this in my personal relationships, where else am I doing that, will be a really helpful exercise for you. And understanding that, the real thing about being too tolerant is we can end up expecting people to guess what our needs are. And then when they don't guess what your needs are, you're really disappointed and upset. And you spend a lot of time actually feeling like nobody cares and where is everybody, and and that can be quite isolated and make you feel unloved or uncared for. But you kind of put yourself in that position by not actually speaking up. So speaking up for your needs, advocating for your needs, is an act of self-love. And being too tolerant is not an act of self-love. It's an act of selflessness, but almost to your own detriment and to the detriment of the system within the relationship. So I think in an adult relationship, one should never be too tolerant, because you're really training somebody else to kind of treat you however. And you're not taking a stand for the fact that, no, this is how I want to be treated. And that not only sets a boundary for yourself in an act of self-love, but it also sets the tone of the relationship. It's not like I'm going to put up with whatever here. It's actually, no, this is what I deserve and this is what is right. And that then corrects the order of the system, and the system is healthier. And it leads to a healthier relationship and avoids that kind of toxic patterns that we see coming out of a lot of divorce and breakups. So I hope that is helpful, and really just think about that, particularly if you're a very tolerant person. In one of my next videos, I'm going to be talking about the drama triangle, and you'll find if you are a tolerant person, you probably find yourself in the drama triangle a lot. Hope that's helpful. Cheers.